Mia Yang's persistence has proven unstoppable and prevailed. So that's why I found myself standing in front of you at another Citizen League event. Anyhow, congratulations on hosting this meaningful and important event. And my sincere respect to President Linda Champion and Chair Young Mia for their dedication to this community. When I looked at today's flyer, one line really stood out to me. Join experts to hear their experiences, insights, and fears. And the panel will explore pursuing a career in law, impact of bullying, hazing, in child's mental health, substance abuse. As we wrap up this year, I can't think of topics that matter more, especially to parents lying awake at 2 a.m. And at the recent year-end gathering with the Korean community leaders, President Linda Champion shared something that still stayed with me. For our next generation to grow into responsible and exemplary citizens in this society, it starts at home with Korean language, culture, values, and respect. And just as importantly, we must work together to protect our youth from drugs, crimes, and poor decisions, which sometimes look very tempting to the teenagers. That's exactly why today matters, I think, and bringing experts from law, mental health, and public service together is not that easy, but it is very necessary. And I hope you hear advice tonight that is practical, honest, and something you will actually remember tomorrow morning. But now I heard that there will be a main event after this seminar, and DJ will be here. And then there's me in attire suits like that, but that's why I don't think it's suitable for that tremendous event. I'm afraid that DJ Beach and the security will keep escort me out to this tremendous event. And so there's a real chance. My advice is very simple. Please endure and put up with the educational and very serious 2 hours, and then reward yourself by letting the music take over you. And enjoy a fantastic night. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Park. So we are a little bit of learning behind, so we will skip a lot of things to get to the panel right away. So unlike a traditional the panel that we used to have, tonight is not about speech. It's about real conversation. As Mr. Park introduced, about the title is about the leadership, law, mental health, bullying, and choices and decisions that can shape your future. So before we start, I'd like to ask everyone in here, we don't really have a lot of people today, I know, but we have a party tonight, and I was told more than 300 tickets already sold. So I'm just waiting these people coming. Probably they will come after this panel. But yeah, I'd like to ask everyone in here to raise your hand if you ever faced a tough decision that you are not quite sure what the right choice or decision would be or was. Raise your hands. Thank you. So that's probably starting, one point that we're going to have a panel tonight. right. Please let me introduce myself. My name is Young Chiu. I am Senior Vice President of the KACL, Korean American Citizens League of the New England. I'm also Associate Dean of the School of Social Science at Endicott College, which is about 30 miles from here. I'm also serve as a Homeland Security Graduate Program Director over there. So I'd like to thank KACL, the New England, and our distinguished panelists for taking their time out of a busy schedule this time of the year to be here. So what I would like to do is that I'd like to ask each panelist to briefly introduce themselves, their names, roles, and one paragraph, just describe themselves. How about President Yang first?
I actually promote to chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. She used to be a president of the KACL. Now she is the chairwoman of our board. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I am chair of KACL-NE, and also I'm licensed psychotherapist, and I'm founder of Asian American Counseling Services.
Mostly I just preach the word of God, and I serve at Gloucester.
Thank you.
That's tough to follow after being a beacon of hope. I'm Marion, I'm Marion Ryan. I have the privilege of being the district attorney here in Middlesex County. And clearly I am not Korean, but I am someone who owes an enormous debt to the Korean people. And the actions of the Korean people have in a great deal affected the way that we run our office. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Hello everyone, my name is Esther Kim. I am a 303 certified student practitioner. I am the daughter of a minister, youngest of 3. I was born in Massachusetts. I have experience with a lot of what we're going to talk about here today, and I hope that I can also act as a light in the path for anyone in thinking about a future in law or just dealing with any issues that we might talk about here today.
Thank you all. Thank you all. So, like I said, we are just running out of time, so I'm going to go directly first question to our panelists. So, any one of you can just respond to this first question in 2 or 3 minutes. When you think back to your youth, maybe your high school years or college years, what moment or mistake shaped your sense of responsibility or leadership? Again, it's talking about when you were young, high schools and college years.
I will go first. I can't be an expert. Making lots of mistakes. So many mistakes and so many failures. And I think those experiences actually helped me to grow my internal strength and adapting a lot of different obstacles. So I would like to talk to everyone. Don't be afraid of failing. To me, giving up is an issue.
Thank you. Anyone of you?
Sure, I'll go ahead and take that. I would say that something that has always been prevalent in my life is having great mentors. I was at a crossroads, I would say, when I was younger, just growing up Korean American. I think a lot of Korean American children can relate. And especially preachers' children, PKs as we're called. There's a big friction that we face as not being American enough or not being Korean enough, and it leaves us in an area that's very gray. And we fight with our culture and we don't realize. And there was a moment I remember when I was younger, I told my parents I didn't want to speak Korean. And I only wanted to speak English with them. And now I feel so embarrassed, I'm so saddened, and I apologize profusely to them all the time when I think about it, just because at that moment, really in my life, I was facing a battle of being at school and being embarrassed of my culture. And that's one mistake in my life, I think, that it made me stronger, as one of the panelists just mentioned, but it's also something that kind of is a battle scar for me. But definitely I think that reaching out and finding mentors was something, also seeing role models in my parents, different members in the community, is something that can help guide younger generations out of any kind of friction they might have, whether it be culture or different issues that they might face.
Thank you.
I think one thing that when you're younger, you always think that everybody else has it all figured out. And you compare yourself a lot to other people, and usually find yourself not as good, not as smart, not as social as they are. And usually that's very wrong. And I think when you get older, you realize nobody really has it figured out, and everybody has the same struggles going on. And I think if you can come to that realization earlier, that really helps you to be a leader.
Thank you, Mary. I think the marker of when you know that you're getting old is that when someone asks you, like, can you remember when you were young, what happened, and you struggle to actually figure out what being young was like. So I'm just being very honest. It's very hard for me. I waited all this time because I'm trying to figure out what time that I might have had that moment. And so one that I was reminded of is that I immigrated here when I was 9 years old. This was in the 70s, so I mean the normal operating mode for us immigrants was acclimate as fast as possible, integrate as fast as possible, and just fit in. And so I was growing up in the Midwest, in Missouri. There weren't a lot of people like me, and so I came to embrace the Midwest. I love Johnny Cash, I love bluegrass. I thought I fit right in. But at one point when I was in high school, and my parents are typical immigrants working 12, 16, 18 hours a day. We're coming home late from our work, late at night, and they were opening our home door, front door, and I could hear across the street from our own neighbors, their children's window, lots of slurs being yelled at, and little snickers and laughter. And usually I learned to survive and ignore those things for myself. But my parents didn't even know that they were being made fun of as this was happening. And I think at that moment, I switched from being in a survive mode to fight mode. So instead of just letting it go and just, because there was no harm. Mom and Dad didn't even know they were being insulted, right? But I actually turned around and I yelled and I ran over, crossed that street, knocked on their door, and their father came out, a big, giant Caucasian man, and I had to very firmly but quietly explain to their father what was going on and asking him whether he would consider talking to his children. And so that was one of those moments where I had to intentionally make a different choice about how I live my life in those situations.
Thank you, Sam. I'll share that. So I'd like to just ask this question to our audience as well. But back in high school, I think I was a lost boy. I have no idea what I was doing. I just kept doing it, just going to school without really thinking too much. But as you can see, some of us maybe not were confident when we were young, but we are. Some of us leading, organizations, community, and serve people. And I call down all these distinguished, panelists as the leaders of our community. So my question to you is that, turn to someone next to you and ask or answer this question. What is one quality you think a good leader needs? Just ask someone just next to you or answer. What quality? One thing, only one thing that you believe that a good leader should have.
Empathy. Empathy.
Empathy. Okay. What do you think?
Oh, I have my
Okay.
um,
Just one word, one thought.
out of box thinking.
Out of box thinking.
Don't be afraid.
Okay.
In the box thinking is making you feel afraid of new challenges.
Okay.
That's the good leader's quality to
I
me.
agree. What do you guys?
I think that being open is very important because you want to be able to listen to others' ideas, and that kind of helps you grow as a person as a whole, because you can't just grow by yourself. But as one of us leaders on the panel just said, the mentors are very helpful, and being able to listen and kind of grow in that kind of way, I think would be very beneficial to you.
I think a good quality for a leader to have is accountability. Something that you, as a leader, you have to be responsible for your actions, and whether you're right or wrong, you have to own it and own up for whether you're right or actually wrong, and accountability does that.
Wow. What grade are you guys? I mean, are you educated? Are you in high school?
Sophomore in college.
College, okay.
It's my senior year of high school.
High school, wow. Well, you guys thought about that in a student in high school? No, I have to agree with some of the things that you mentioned. Open, but I mean, it's the open means that you also needed to share the vulnerability and also the accountability. That's really important. So this is sort of I don't think any of you are thinking about the leadership is about titles. Leadership is not really about someone who just played in the role, just having whatever they're given to them. There's a lot of other things. We're gonna come back what meaning of the leadership, and then this question, the next question, somehow tied to one of those qualities that we are looking for as your leader in the future. So this is about related, somehow unrelated, but tied to next topic of today's Young Leaders Symposium, bullying and hazing. So let's try something different. So I'm gonna describe a situation, and I want you to think, what you would do. Okay, you don't have to answer out loud yet. So here is the situation. A student is repeatedly teased in a group chat. It started as jokes, but it's getting personal. You're not the target, but you are in the same chat room. So raise your hand, one of these 3 situations that I'm going to ask you. Okay? 1, if you would stay silent, raise your hands. 2, you would leave that chat room. 3, you would speak up. So you all speak up. All right. So I'm not going to the panels, and this is a more professional perspective. I mean, each one of us can choose based on your situation, what is the best, for you at that moment. But this is more about, professional and legal aspects. So my question to our DA. From your perspective, when does this situation cross from joking to bullying or harassment? That's what the first question. And then second question is that what are the real consequences, legally, mentally, or emotionally, or socially? That second question can be, any of you can respond to about the first question.
So there are two really different things. One is bullying that schools are supposed to act to stop. So something's happening in the school. It's not necessarily a crime. You know, people are saying mean things. But it is causing an impact in the school. Kids aren't coming to school, kids aren't going to class, they're not doing their work. The school in Massachusetts, the school is supposed to step in to deal with that. The pieces of it that sometimes become criminal are we start seeing pictures get sent around, very inappropriate pictures, and people are sending and receiving those. And in Massachusetts, it's a crime either to receive them or to send them. Or people, we have had at least 2 homicides, 2 murders that started with things on social media. So there's back and forth, then it becomes, you know, let's meet up, we'll settle this, and terrible things happen. The other piece that we see far too often, and it's 2 pieces, I think, reflective of what social media does. First of all, people say things on social media that you would never walk up to somebody and say. I don't care what you think of them, you just would not go up and look them in the face and say that. The second is the frequency with which you could do it. I think for some of us, when we were growing up, even if people were saying mean things to you at school or being mean to you, when you went home, the day was sort of over. Because unless you were going to call someone's house where one of their parents might answer the phone and then they would hear what you were saying, that was sort of the end of it. For kids now, and you all know this stuff can go on 24/7. It can go on all weekend. We will certainly see episodes that will go on all through this holiday break. And the third piece is, if I walk up and say something to you or mutter something about you, in a lot of ways that's very different than me writing it down and sending it to you. Number one, because many times we hear from kids that they keep reading over and over again what was said about them. So people were saying terrible things and then they're sitting alone at home reading and rereading, you know, how you look, you're stupid, you're not this, you're not that. And it really, they internalize a lot of that. And that's where we see one of the biggest consequences of this is either kids really severely struggling with mental health issues or in the worst circumstance, dying by suicide. When they just can't, you know, one of the things, and you know this, when you are younger, it's hard to imagine that in 2 or 4 months you won't see these people anymore. You know, you're a senior in high school, it's probably hard to imagine that in 6 or 8 months you probably will see no one you go to school with. But people don't have that perspective. And they feel like my life will always be like this. People will always say mean things. And they take some very drastic action. And then in terms of the consequences, in Middlesex, we take a different approach, particularly to that sending of pictures. We understand that many times for kids, they didn't quite appreciate the wrongfulness of what they were doing because it is a felony in Massachusetts. So we try not to prosecute people for that. We try to do education for them and for their parents. That is not true everywhere. In many places you would be prosecuted. And a felony is different than less serious crimes because it has a lot of collateral consequences. So for instance, if you are convicted of a felony, it may well make you ineligible for federal student aid. So you may not be getting federal grants or anything because you've been convicted of a felony. If you have, your immigration status is in question, a felony can result in you being sent out of the country. It can make you ineligible for federal jobs. So it's incredibly serious, and I think people don't appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Very comprehensive, response to, even some of the terrible outcome if you are engaged in this kind of, bullying or the hazing in a school circumstance. I do know two cases that ended up with a suicide in a high school situation, which nobody really, thought about it. But and that's how serious sometimes this kind of the chat room, conversation getting out of control and worse. So any of the panelists in here to respond to the other legal consequences out of this, mental aspects, or the emotional aspects, or social, and maybe the spiritual aspects of this?
So actually I prepared for a video clip, and the title is Adolescents. Have you seen that movie, full series, Adolescents? Okay. So I chose this movie because it vividly illustrates how bullying, grooming develop, and then this 13-year-old boy kind of appeared to be very small, even kind of shy, and he ended up stabbing a female classmate multiple times and resulting in death. And somehow the reason is that this female classmate posted on Instagram calling him an incel. And I actually tried to learn what that is. So I am going to show you one video clip. I might show you a second one, okay? But first one, please.
So, all right? Is this about a guy in your class? I feel like a guy. Huh? No. What's up? Sit down. Adam, you're freaking me out. What's going on? Just, is this? He said he wanted to talk to people. Might be able to help you understand. And you can help me understand? Yeah? That's what you're saying? Adam, is this? I don't want to go. Listen to me. I'm here. I'm here. What are you doing? Have you got information about that? Do you know where that knife is? Has someone said something to you? Because listen, I've got sniffer dogs, people down the drains, and all sorts of stuff going on. Right. It's not going well because you're not getting it. What am I not getting? You're not reading what they're doing. What's happening? What are you talking about? Insta. You've been looking at Insta, right? Yeah. Okay, so you've seen what she wrote? I have. Okay. Looks like she did nice, right? Isn't she? The dynamite. What do you think that means? I don't know. Listen, let's burn a red pill. Pills, the blue pills means you see the world is that's what the Matrix. You've been watching the Matrix? Don't worry. Okay. Yeah, don't worry, carry on. Carry on. Red Bull is like, I see the truth. It's a call to action by the manosphere. Manosphere? Which is where the 100 comes in. The 80 to 20 rule. Adam, listen. My brain can't take all this. I don't know what you're talking about. Just break it down. 80% of women are attracted to 20% of men. Women, you must trick them because you'll never get them in a normal way. 80% of women are cut off for, oh, she's saying he's an incel. That he's 13. How can you be involuntary celibate at 13? I know. He wasn't celibate at 13. Huh? She say anyways will be. That's what they say, you're an incel. you're going to be a virgin forever, basically. And all those people are vital, which means that they're agreeing with her. Okay? So this is bullying. I mean, it's a bit of a stretch, but I don't believe me that. No, I'm not saying I don't believe you. Where you go?
Okay, so my questions to you, there are 4 series. Why I picked this clip? Any ideas? This is not the boy, Jamie. This is Adam. His father is the DEA investigator, and he actually was visiting Jamie's school in order to find where the knife is. So his son tried to give him some clue. Why I chose this clip? Any ideas? So I want to mention about how to prevent. When you are watching this is actually for parents. When you watch this movie, what do you see? His father. Anyone? So he is present, right? But he constantly interrupts him, even dismissing him, right? And then do you remember Adam said, oh, you want to go gym or work? Just leave. Why he said that? When you are hearing it, you can tell that how his father was spending time. Yes? And also, he talking about dynamite or pills and all that, and then he said, oh yeah, that's mattress, you know? So instead of trying to what it is, he just dismissed him again. Right? So I want to mention about the communication and how to detect your child that is depressed. I just want to mention to you, I write a lot of things, but when kids are depressed, just imagine that you are bullied. What kind of feelings you have first? What you gonna do? First symptom. You are very sad, right? And you're gonna be silent. You're gonna withdraw. And then no interest. Something that it will show distant from you. Another way is the teenagers are different. They can be very, very reactive. The reason is that they are already very sad inside, and usually when they are bullied, they think that they did something wrong. And they started feeling enormous feelings of shame and then somehow guilt. So they already very vulnerable, right? And then anything happened and they just outburst. They become out of control. And sometimes they get very, very, very upset, more than before. I have clients that, so her siblings all went to Ivy League, but she was not doing well. And then the reason that she came to my because she was suicidal. And she was genius. Even she make use something that make all A's, report card, and then her parents were so happy, and they found out she made it, something like that. But that night got into big fight, and then mom said in Korean, "너 나가 죽어." That means literally, you know. But it just said, "You get out of your house and kill yourself," right? But she is not very fluent in Korean, so she literally just interpreted as "get out and kill yourself." But as you know, that's not really meaning, right? Sometimes parents say it. So that caused her to be very depressed. And I was seeing her a few months, and then she told me she cried. And how parents can say to me that I get out, they kick me out, and kill myself. So somehow, especially the language barrier can be an obstacle to communicate efficiently or closely, but don't worry about it. Kids like to have fun. And in order to be close, instead of focusing on how to solve the problems, you just change gear into how to have fun with my kid. And they will open the door for you. But do not ignore when your kid's behaving a little bit, even slightly, okay? It's different. You gotta pay attention. But Koreans think that silence is respect, self-control, right? And it is kind of, and then they said, I hear parents saying, "Oh, she's a teenager. You know, teenagers. It's normalizing it. Please don't." Okay.
Thank you. There's a lot of, I try to, sort of, put myself into that situation and follow what she's, advising us as your parents, and especially communicating with, our, own sons and daughters. I felt like a little bit guilty that I didn't really communicate quite well with my kids when they were young. So let me just quickly capture, what she's, if I correctly, follow her advice is that we all have at one point struggle ourselves in our life, and a lot of stress during your school years. But I think one thing that is very important is that as someone just mentioned, open yourself sometimes and engaging in good conversation. But one thing that culturally that I also have to agree with the Chairman Young is that we often do not know how to ask help, because that's what we were told or raised when we were young. So as your parents, I don't know how I can communicate with my kids when you get in trouble, when you need something, or please ask for help, which I normally don't do that. So that is another way that I like to just summarize for this, how important it is to open up and asking help. Even it doesn't have to your parents. Sometimes if you need somebody, just talk about it, then seek out and help. So let me just change a little bit about the topic, which also related to so much to the what the conversation we had. So this is another scenario, okay? This is a scenario related to underage drinking and DUI. So in this situation, sometimes this happens more often than what most of us admit. So here is the situation. You are at a party. This is a perfect moment. It's the holiday seasons and parties and people get together. Even tonight, after this panel, we're gonna have a party, the holiday party. Someone you know has been drinking and offers you a ride home. And it's late, and your phone battery is low. So I'd like to ask this question to panel first, and then I'm gonna, ask you guys to audience later on. So to our panel, especially our DA in here, what legal consequences do young people not realize about underage drinking and its risk in DUI? And how long can these consequences follow young kids if they got arrested for underage drinking or DUI situation?
So I always say as many of these cases, the OUI cases, as we see, especially the ones where there's terrible consequences, people have many reactions. The reaction that we never see is, I knew that was going to happen to me. Because people always think it's going to be somebody else. And they don't think about what the consequences are going to be or how long they're going to last. People think I'm okay, the person who's going to drive is okay, I don't live that far, it's late, there won't be a lot of traffic, and they sort of justify to themselves getting into that situation. And then when something terrible happens, and they're faced with either the legal consequences of you being prosecuted for driving under the influence, for serious bodily injury being caused to somebody dying as a result of the driving, then they don't realize that you can face up to 10 years in jail for those charges, in prison actually. And in some ways, the consequences besides that can be really lifelong. So for instance, you are driving, you're under the influence, you have an accident. The person, because we live in Boston and there's amazing medical facilities, they get taken to a hospital, their injuries are devastating, but they survive. Financially, for you and your family, if they own that car, those consequences are going on forever. Because that person who you hit, maybe they're 18 and they're going to survive, but they might not be walking again. They might not ever be able to get a job. They might suffer some brain injury. Think about what the cost of caring for that person is, multiplied by 50 or 60 years that they might live. And think about, just as you are sitting here, if you're on the jury, and what a jury hears about is, here's this person who was talented, they were an athlete, they were smart, they had a great future, and now they literally need people to be feeding them or dressing them. But going to work, going to school, all of that. And people forget about that. I think when you're younger, you think, well, first of all, it's not going to happen to me. And if it does, I'm not afraid, so I get killed. There are many, many worse things that can happen than being the victim in that incident. There can be the guilt of your passengers who might have been your best friends, your siblings. Some of the saddest cases we see are one person has been drinking, they're driving their siblings, and their sibling dies in that crash. So now, a sibling and a friend. Now the family's faced with really financial ruin. The driver may be going to jail, and you've lost a sibling. And that is not tragically an uncommon occurrence. So, and even if you just get arrested for driving under, right? So you leave someplace, you've had too much to drink, you're driving, you're fortunate in the sense that you're just weaving all over the road, you get pulled over, you're arrested. It's probably gonna cost you on average about $15,000 for a lawyer for that. Your insurance is pretty much finished. You're gonna be losing your license for some period of time. So just those financial pieces, it is so much easier, safer, cheaper to call an Uber, call a friend, do something besides getting in a car in that condition.
Thank you so much. This response somehow related our beginning of this panel questions about the decision making, what choice do you make, and that choice that you are not sure what is that is right choice or decision. As Maria just mentioned, that it's not going to happen to me. It's something that a lot of us and young people, they don't see that it's going to be something that could happen to them. And just one decision, one night during holiday parties, getting together, just happening like that. And then the consequence, as she just described, is kind of lifelong and quite what damage for pretty much all your life career. So what I like to do is that just what some of you might think about that as a high school and maybe young college students that what are the best way to get away in that kind of a situation? Someone just come to, hey, I think you'll be right, we just have a little drink and have you ever been in that situation? And what's your name? You said you're the sophomore in college? You never drinks before, or you?
The statute of limitations.
I counsel you to be careful with this answer.
I think as a sophomore in college, not a lot of kids have their cars on campuses, so I think Uber's the best and safest option, especially as a college kid. Not a lot of kids have the opportunity to drive. As a college student, you just have to really pretty much Uber or take the train everywhere that you want to go. And I think as a college student, that's the safest way of travel because you're not driving or putting any of your friends in a certain position where you feel vulnerable or unsafe.
The other piece of that though, and we don't always talk about this enough, and we unfortunately see it too often. You're right, college kids mostly will take a train, or they're going to take an Uber, or they're going to walk. But it's really important to look out for each other in those circumstances. We have lots of people who take off to go somewhere. They're walking or they're taking the train, and they've had too much to drink, and things like they fall in the water. They fall into the train tracks. All kinds of things happen to people. Just in this county, we've had 3 or 4 kids over the last 10 years or so. People set off, and especially if you're with your friends, and people have had too much to drink, and somebody gets mad, I'm gonna go walk. With the girl right in Andover, there was an argument about, who had been talking to some guy. Girl walked off, she'd had too much to drink, she fell, she either hit her head or she passed out, and she literally drowned in a really small amount of water on the ground, just because she was passed out. There's been a series of young men in Boston, right over by the Suffolk County Jail. They leave North Station, they've had too much to drink, they're walking, and they end up in the river. And they don't survive that, especially in the winter. We had a kid who ended up in the reservoir very close to Boston College. Same thing, walking, got disoriented because he'd been drinking, right into the water. So look out for each other. And if you are that impaired yourself, that is the time to really ask for help.
Thank you. Again, just a quick reminder for our young people. When you have the circumstance situation, just making the best decision out of that. It's very common sense, as we just discussed. So I'm gonna move probably the last question, because again we have about 10 more minutes before next events that are waiting for us. So The next question is about the career developments and the public service areas in particular. So many students feel pressure, to have everything figured out, early. Just senior year of high school and college, and they have a lot of pressures and stressed out. So my question to our panelists was that, again, bring them back to the past when they were 18 or 21 or 22. So my question here is that, how did your career path actually unfold? And how different was it from what you imagined at your age of 18?
So for me, I grew up with very humble beginnings. My father is a retired pastor, and we grew up with not much. And so naturally, I wanted to go into business and make lots of money. And so I gravitated toward a degree in economics and finance. My dream was to be a CEO of a company. I went to Young Leaders on a government scholarship to get my MBA. And while I was there, my father also taught us at a very young age that volunteering is very important. So being on a government scholarship, I felt very uncomfortable taking from a country without giving back. I immediately found opportunities to volunteer, and something that struck me was teaching English at an orphanage. I went there and I taught English to the young children. And there I get a little emotional about this, but I noticed immediately that something was off with the children. Children usually have a great light about them, very whimsical, very inquisitive. Some of these children had, for lack of a better word, dimming, is what I would say. And I asked them daily, what's going on every time I was there. No one would really tell me anything. They were very quite guarded. So the best I could do was what my parents taught me, was to teach them stories, read them stories, English stories about very powerful figures, Joan of Arc, Anne Frank, etc. And just hope that maybe one day someone would tell me what's going on, because in my gut, I could tell something was off. And then later on, when I transitioned, I had to leave that area because I was not going to do my MBA in the city. And while I was in Shanghai as a director of foreign investment, my parents actually told me, because the Korean community is also very small, that they read an article in the Korean newspaper here about a temple. It was a temple, by the way, an orphanage run by Buddhist monks. And that temple, they said, hey, isn't this where you volunteered? And I said, yes, why? What's going on? How do you hear about that? It was very random. And they said, well, unfortunately, we just read in the news that the children had been physically and sexually abused. Yeah, and so their faces stay with me always. And one of the boys that I had actually tutored, the older boys, he was in high school, he had left in the middle of the night and alerted officials. And he had, I would like to think, the courage to do so just because his eyes were opened up to something outside. It was a very remote area, very much where their interactions with people, I would say, were slim, outside of the voluntary. So that moment is one moment that's very pivotal in my career change to law. I wanted to protect them, and I realized that in order to really fully protect them, I needed to know the rule of law. And another aspect of it is just growing up having Korean American parents. I grew up daily being their interpreter, my sisters and I, at banks, doctor's appointments, watching them be discriminated against because of the way they looked or their broken English. And to be quite honest, I got fed up with it. It was really annoying, and at times I would get angry, but obviously as a child you don't really recognize it. But as an adult now, and also to see what's going on currently, it's very frustrating to see that the time continuum, like the time changes, but a lot of the problems that we face, especially as Korean Americans, don't change. And that's something that, again, protection is what has brought me into a career in law, and also the district attorney's office at Suffolk, in the Suffolk County. And one thing that I would love to just do is, honestly, the DAs and all the ADAs, they work tremendously hard. They have minimal time and resources, but they have this glue, this passion of wanting to protect the people of the Commonwealth. And that is something that I have found to be so profound and so amazing, and something that just really you can't buy that. It's the service in the people, the public service, the wanting to protect, the being the protection, and the ministers of justice. And that's what brought me into law, as well as a district attorney's office.
Thank you so much. Well, that's very touching, but also powerful story that you shared. Well, thank you. Is anybody else like to, hey, you know, yeah. Pastor Kim, you know.
So in Matthew 25, it's a book in the Bible. It talks about when Jesus comes back, he judges the world, and he splits the people between both goats and sheep. Sheep, my people, goats, go home. And he says to the sheep, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was lonely, you visited me. When I was cold, you gave me shelter. When I was in prison, you came and tended to me. And then the sheep said, when did we ever do this? And whatever you did to the least of mine, you did to me. I heard this when I was 9 at a church. And the room disappeared, and I realized that was my call to help others, the least of these. And so like a good Korean kid, I asked all the adults how you help people, and they said, oh, you should be a lawyer. So then I pursued law. And so to pay for college as an immigrant, I wanted to serve my country. I love this country. But I found out that there's a Navy ROTC scholarship program where they pay for college and they guarantee me a management job. And so I went through college through a Navy ROTC scholarship. And then I was commissioned a Navy officer. Then I was shipped off to the Persian Gulf. And I served in the Persian Gulf War, came back, and I went to law school like I planned. And then I became a lawyer, and I practiced law for 13 years as a corporate lawyer in Boston. It was awesome. I loved what I was doing. I felt like I was part of the economic development aspect. I represent a lot of startup companies, entrepreneurial services. And I was doing okay. I was doing pretty well.
No, you did good.
But at the same time, 2001, 9/11 happened, and I watched in my nice office 2 buildings come down and realized that thousands have passed in one single day without knowing the name of Jesus. So in between office hours, I started going out to the subways and on the streets with my guitar and started sharing the gospel. I did that for about 6-7 years. But the Lord was gracious. I was still doing pretty well. I was a partner in a law firm. But I was reminded that my call was not to be a lawyer. I became a lawyer for my call. And the call was that I continued to help the least of these. And the more successful a lawyer I was becoming, I had to focus on being successful. And so eventually the Lord allowed me to leave. So I left the law practice. I ended up at a city mission group where I work with a lot of community groups, especially around youth violence in some of the most troubled areas in Boston, which is amazing. And the long story short, God took me kicking and screaming to seminary, and then I became a pastor of a small church in North Andover called Intercultural Mission Church, where we have a bunch of mixed up misfits, and we love sharing life together. So all that to say, as young people, I know that the pressure is I have to have everything figured out, or whatever decision I make about what I'm going to be, I'm stuck forever in whatever wrong or right choices you make. You're going to have lots of different split of your path, and so be excited about that. Don't worry. You don't, nothing is for life. You will have many chapters in your life, and be excited about those changes, and be open to it.
Thank you so much. That's also very touching story. I like that. Mariana, would you like to say something?
Sure. I certainly never intended to be a DA. We had an experience in my family when I was a child where somebody needed some real medical attention. There was a real struggle, and I had parents who spoke English, who had resources, and it was just a real struggle with the military to try to for a family member to try to get them medical care. And ultimately, they went and got a lawyer to represent them, and suddenly things were different. And I thought, I want to spend my time being the person who can make things come out differently. And so I went to law school, and this really speaks to the value of just when you're in high school and in college, just trying different things, because I thought I would go out and, you know, do some corporate work, or at least do a lot of litigation. And by doing internships during law school and going to different places, I ended up doing one at the DA's office and just really loved that work and have been there ever since. So, you know, I think it's true, there are lots of chapters. You end up in places you never thought you would be, but part of that comes from being open to opportunities. And things that you think, I wouldn't like that, or that's not something I'd be interested in. You know, the 4 to 8 years that you spend in high school and college are great opportunities to try on a lot of those things.
Thank you for your advice and your students. Mia, would you like to?
I'll be very quick. My story is bored. So when I was in high school, and I have some depression and anxiety because of education system. And it got into psychosomatic symptoms, so I struggled a lot. And so somehow, but I majored in English literature. But when I came here as an international student, so one story. So I was sophomore in college, and I was seeking for some help. And when I was seeing college counselor, that she was just doing intake, so she just really just worked. So I got so mad. So I went to administration office, and I said, I want to have double major. So they said it's a little bit too late. However, they allow me to take a lot of psychology classes. So I almost like a double major, but I came here and majored in clinical psych. And then I think that because what I went through at high school, and that really helped me to go on my career. So I don't, and actually, I am very grateful that a lot of support from family and friends, and I am here.
Thank you. So I'm going to wrap it up, and we're going to finish our panel by asking our panel to finish the following sentence, okay? And then I will, end with the end statement. So the sentence that you need to finish is that young leader is someone who. Finish the sentence. So would you think that a young leader is someone who
is open-minded? It's like a free association, like analytic tree.
Okay, that's good. Sam?
Young leader is someone who takes the M out of me and puts a W.
A young leader is someone who is able to put themselves in somebody else's shoes and know what their experience is, or be open to learning what their experience is.
I would say a young leader is someone who recognizes the value in a value in not only themselves but in others.
May I add on?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, just
I agree with President Champion. Empathy is very important. Without empathy, actually it is very hard to delegate people if you don't know their struggles and empathy, it's very hard to delegate. So empathy is very important.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you, for all our panelists today. So why don't you give it a big round of applause? It's my honor to serve as the moderator today. And one thing that I like to say is that we are lucky to have the leaders in our community, cared about the people, commit themselves, passionate for what they're doing. I think that is true, lucky that we have and follow their mottos at least. So again, I'm very honored to be in, this wonderful panel today as a moderator. Thank you again all. Okay. Okay, again, this we have a following event. Presidents, would you like to just mention?
So I would just ask that all of the young people who participated in the Young Leaders Symposium, if we could just have you guys all come behind the panelists so we can get a photo, please.
Okay, one more time. 2, 3, 1. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. We're going to be letting everyone in now because we're going to immediately start the Moon Awards. If any of you need to leave and you are not planning to participate in the next series of events, please take a to-go bag with you, one of the food bags with you as you leave. Thank you.
Just